Your retirement can fail before you invest a single dollar. The average gray divorce can cut retirement assets nearly in half. Half. 30 years of saving, 30 years of investing, 30 years of saying no when everyone else said yes. And then one event shows up and suddenly the math looks completely different. What's strange is that almost nobody talks about this. People obsess over stocks. They obsess over real estate. They obsess over side hustles. They obsess over interest rates. Meanwhile, one of the biggest threats to long-term wealth barely gets mentioned. By the time we're done, you'll understand why some people making $80,000 retire comfortably, while others making $200,000 never do. You'll understand why retirement is not just an investing game, and you'll understand the financial scoreboard most people don't realize they're playing on until years have already passed. Most people think retirement is a math problem. Income, savings, investments, expenses. Simple. Except that doesn't explain something weird. Two people can earn almost the same salary, invest in the same index funds, live in the same city, work for the same company, and end up with completely different outcomes. That shouldn't happen. But it does, every day. And once you see why, you can't unsee it. Think about your paycheck. Every month, money leaves your account. Rent, mortgage, food, gas, insurance, streaming services, the usual stuff. You probably track some of it, you probably ignore some of it. But there is one financial variable sitting underneath all of those expenses. Most people never calculate it. Most people never even think about it. Yet it can determine whether your wealth compounds for 30 years or gets split apart right before retirement. And here's the crazy part. The financial damage often starts years before the divorce papers show up. Most people assume the divorce is the event. Sometimes the divorce is just the receipt. Meet Jason. Jason is 38 years old. He lives in Phoenix, works as a logistics manager, makes $97,000 a year. Drives a 4-year-old Toyota Camry, contributes 10% to his 401k, gets his employer match, pays his bills on time, rarely misses work. Honestly, Jason looks responsible, the kind of person who should retire comfortably. Every Saturday morning, he buys coffee, checks his investment account, feels a little behind, checks social media, feels even more behind, then goes back to work Monday morning and keeps investing. Sound familiar? Jason spends hours thinking about investments. Hours. But the largest financial variable in his life barely gets any attention. Not because he's careless, because nobody taught him to look for it. Most people believe retirement success comes from choosing the right investments. That's only partially true. The first secret is this. Retirement success depends just as much on wealth preservation as wealth creation. And wealth preservation is a lot less exciting. Nobody makes viral videos about it. Nobody brags about it online, but it matters a lot. Now, here's where things get uncomfortable. Imagine two couples. Each couple has $700,000 invested, a house worth $400,000, some cash, 2 vehicles, nothing extravagant, just normal middle-class success. On paper, both households are worth about $1.2 million, secure, stable, comfortable. Then one household stays together, the other doesn't. People think the assets simply get divided, half here, half there, problem solved. Except that's not what happens. One household becomes 2, one set of bills becomes 2, one retirement destination becomes 2 retirement plans, one grocery budget becomes 2, one electric bill becomes 2, one internet bill becomes 2, one life becomes 2 separate financial systems. The assets got divided, the efficiency got destroyed, and efficiency is where retirement plans quietly succeed or fail. But even that isn't the most expensive part. The most expensive part happens before anyone starts dividing anything. Let's talk about something people hate discussing, opportunity cost. Not because it's complicated, because it's invisible. Invisible costs are always the most dangerous. Imagine two couples spend 5 years fighting. Arguments, stress, financial disagreements, separate accounts, separate goals, no real plan, no coordination, no trust. While that's happening, investment contributions slow down, emergency savings stop growing, career opportunities get ignored, risk-taking disappears, financial decisions become defensive instead of productive. The damage starts years before lawyers enter the picture. People see the divorce, they don't see the decade leading up to it. That's where huge amounts of wealth quietly disappear. And if you think this only affects average people, it doesn't. Let's talk about someone who had every advantage imaginable. Bill Gates, one of the richest people in human history. Access to the best lawyers, the best advisors, the best accountants, the best financial planners, unlimited resources, unlimited information, yet his divorce involved tens of billions of dollars changing hands. Now, this isn't about judging anyone. That's not the point. The point is something else. If a person with virtually unlimited financial resources cannot completely insulate wealth from relationship outcomes, what makes the average person think they're immune? Money is powerful. Relationships are powerful. When those two forces collide, even extraordinary fortunes change shape.
And that should tell you something important. This isn't just a personal issue. This is a financial reality. Now let's return to Jason, because Jason thinks he's playing one game, but he's actually playing two. The first game is obvious. Save money, invest money, grow money. Everyone understands that game. The second game is invisible. Protect the conditions that allow compounding to happen. Most people never realize they're playing that game. And invisible games are dangerous because you don't know you're losing until the score appears. Think about compounding for a second. Everybody loves talking about compound growth. Invest $500 a month. Invest $1,000 a month. Wait 30 years. Become wealthy. Great. Fantastic. But compound growth requires something nobody talks about: stability. Compounding isn't just about money. Compounding is about uninterrupted time. The less interruption, the stronger the compounding. The more interruption, the weaker it becomes. That's why wealth often looks boring from the outside. The people building it aren't constantly resetting their lives. They're not constantly starting over. They're not constantly rebuilding from scratch. They're simply allowing time to do its job. And that's where a lot of financial advice gets weird, because people focus on returns. Returns matter, of course they do. But a slightly lower return sustained for 30 years often beats a higher return interrupted multiple times. That's the part nobody puts in the thumbnail, because it's boring. And because it's boring, it's overlooked. Let's do some simple math. A person invests $800 every month for 30 years, average annual return of 8%. They end up with roughly $1.1 million. Great. Now imagine the exact same investor, same contribution, same return, same discipline. But 10 years into the process, they experience a major financial reset. Legal costs, asset division, relocation expenses, rebuilding expenses, reduced contributions, years of recovery. The difference isn't small. The difference can easily reach hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes more. Not because the market changed, because the timeline changed. And that's when most people finally realize something. Retirement wealth isn't won by maximizing gains. It's often won by minimizing interruptions. Here's the sentence I wish more people understood. Retirement wealth is built not by the money you make. It is built by the years your money is allowed to stay uninterrupted. That's it. That's the entire game. The sentence sounds simple, but it changes everything. Because suddenly you stop seeing retirement as a collection of investments. You start seeing it as a collection of conditions. Conditions that allow compounding to survive. Conditions that allow stability to exist. Conditions that allow time to keep working. And once you see that, a lot of things look different. The expensive truck looks different. The constant debt looks different. The financial chaos looks different. The relationship instability looks different. Everything starts looking different. Now look at Jason again.
Same job, same salary, same house, same investments, same Saturday coffee. Nothing changed. Except now you can see the real scoreboard. The scoreboard isn't measuring who looks wealthy. It isn't measuring who drives the nicest vehicle. It isn't measuring who posts the best vacation photos. It's measuring something much simpler. How long can your money keep compounding without interruption? That's the question hiding underneath almost every financial outcome. And once you understand that question, you start noticing things everywhere. You notice people with high incomes but low stability. You notice people with average incomes but incredible consistency. You notice that wealth and appearances are often completely different things. The strange part, most people spend their entire lives staring at the wrong scoreboard. They compare houses, cars, vacations, titles, promotions, followers. Meanwhile, the real scoreboard sits quietly in the background, tracking something nobody can see. Time. Time uninterrupted. Time protected. Time allowed to compound. And here's the final twist. Most people think the biggest threat to retirement is a market crash. History says otherwise. Markets recover. Most crashes eventually recover. What often takes much longer to recover from are major interruptions that permanently alter the timeline itself. That's why the smartest financial decision isn't always the one with the highest return. Sometimes it's the one that protects the most years. Because years are what compound, not predictions, not opinions, not headlines. Years. And once you start seeing wealth through that lens, another uncomfortable question appears, one that almost nobody asks until it's far too late. If interruptions destroy more wealth than most investment mistakes, what other completely normal parts of life have been quietly draining retirement plans this entire time?